Hey everyone, today I'm creating some mini slimline cards with a bit of a fun fold using the Bird Days A5 paper pack from Paper Rose, and I'm also using the April 2022 SheetLoad of cards template from Call Me Crafty. This is one of my top favourite sketches, and I do have a video on that and I'll include the link below. And I'm recreating cards, I'm creating some additional cards using my favourite templates, and for this one I've decided I want to finish this paper pack. I had previously used it for another sheet load back in March 2023, and so some of the sheets have been partially used. I will say that with this card sketch, if you use 6x6 paper, it works brilliantly. You get 2 cards exactly with no waste out of 6x6. So I've made my life a little bit more difficult with this project, but I do have some partially used paper packs that I'm keen to use up. And I thought if I reuse my top 5 sketches, then that'd be a great way to do it. Now, this paper pack has a bunch of sheets with birdhouses and ephemera that is not cut out that you need to fussy cut. So I've put those aside for the moment, and I'm running through and chopping down my A5 paper into the appropriate sizes. The sizes that you need for this project is 4.5 by 3 inches for the front, and then 1.5 by 3 inches for the little side piece. Now, given that I'm using A5 paper and it's a little shorter than 6 inches wide, what I've decided to do is chop down the 4.5 by 3 to be true to size, and then my 1.5 by 3 is actually a little shorter than 1.5, but given you put it on the side flap of the card, no one's going to notice and it's not going to impact at all. So all you need to remember is if you have a 6 by 3 piece of paper, you chop 1.5 off the end, and then that is perfect to create this card sketch. So right now I'm running through and I'm putting all of the pieces of paper that I've chopped down into piles by design. And I generally have 3 of each, not always, because some of these papers I've used previously and I didn't have quite the same volume, but I'm running through with then the extra pieces and deciding what am I going to match up with what. I could have actually gone through and made a decision to use some of the papers just for the bit down the edge, but I thought by doing it this way, you get an absolute mixture and jumble of designs, and I wasn't really sure how they were going to work in the end, but we will see what we do to embellish them a little bit later. The other thing I wanted to mention is this sketch is perfect because if you have paper that goes one direction, for example, those ones there with the birdhouses, then they work absolutely beautifully for single direction paper because when you chop the paper down, the paper is facing the exact same direction on the card front. Now, it may look a little strange because of the way I'm matching these papers up, but the bits on the right-hand side are actually going to spin 90 degrees to be part of the card. I'm just doing this so that I can match them up a little bit more easily, and it lets me kind of shuffle them around as needed. In terms of attaching the paper today, because I'm using Paper Rose and the paper is actually relatively reasonable weight, you can use anything that you want to attach this to your card base. In this instance, I'm using my Barely Art liquid glue, but I do think I swap it around and I sometimes use my ATG as well. It really doesn't matter too much because for this one, it's really simple to line up the pattern papers. It's a very easy sketch and you will not really have to move things around much. And whatever you're comfortable with and whatever you have on hand is going to work just fine. So I ran through all of these and I attached all of them in the order that I had lined them up from when I did my color matching. That is one of my big tips. If I organize that in advance and then all I have to do is compile the cards, I find that it becomes much quicker, especially as a bulk card maker. If you're not creating as many as me, then I think, you could shuffle them around and pick them off your table and just match them up as you go. Now, I wasn't really sure what to do with these birdhouses because I am not a giant fan of fussy cutting out images. I did try and do it for these, but honestly, it just seems to take me forever to cut things out. I do have a scan and cut. I have not tried it in a little while. It's kind of put away in my cupboard in storage, but maybe I should dig it out and try and use it for some of these pages that have all of these really cute images, but for me to cut them all out, I just find it not inspiring and it takes me too long and my fussy cutting skills are not great. So for the purpose of this project and trying to use up this paper pad, I did cut out some of these. I tried to pick the bigger birdhouses, if I'm honest. So rather than the small little butterflies and the tiny little hearts, there's no way I could cut those out and make them look any good. I'm not sure if other people have those skills, but for me, I would struggle with that. So I did the biggest birdhouses, and I had probably a dozen or so that I used on the project. As a reminder, Paper Rose seems to do their paper in 3 sizes. They do big 12 by 12 inch sheets, they do 6 by 6 paper packs, but they also do A5. Now, for their 6 by 6 papers, they come 18 sheets double-sided, and for A5, they come with 24 sheets, but they're single-sided. So the reason I'm really trying to use these up is because there's nothing on the other side, and I really don't want them to go to waste. The next step is to match them up with the partially completed cards. You'll notice here that I do have a few that have coloured cardstock or a different piece of paper that are partnered up with them. This was just the true leftover pieces that weren't quite 3 inches wide. So I just tried to use whatever I had left in my stash to complete them and not have too many leftovers that go back into my scrap pile. So they look a little bit different. I think they look quite cute. I'm not a huge fan of the one in the bottom right-hand corner. I don't think I did a very good job of matching those papers. But for the rest of them, I actually think it looks cool with the bright yellow. So whatever you've got, I'm sure you can try it out and make it work. And someone will love the card either way. I am running through and attaching these, and then in terms of a sentiment, one of the ones that I think is absolutely perfect with these long mini slimline cards is I have the Simply Sentiments Lawn Fawn set, and it is brilliant. I have stamped out loads and loads and loads of these on thin white paper scrap strips, and I can grab them from my stash whenever I need, and they just seem to fit absolutely perfectly along the front of this card. So you'll see me grab little ones like this one here, which is, I have no idea what stamp it is, but it is just a small happy birthday. I have loads of those in my stash. But then I have the bigger ones that say, "You are so amazing" and "Happy birthday." And you'll see me use up an absolute combination today. When I'm trying to finish off a paper pad, I generally try and grab a couple of items from my leftovers and put those to good use as well. It's very uncommon for me to sit down and use up a paper pad or finish a paper pad and create new embellishments. I either grab ephemera that's already in the pack, or I'm using up something that I've partially used on a previous project. So here are the Lawn Fawn sentiments I was talking about earlier. Here's the Just For You, just running through and attaching all of those with my liquid glue. And what you'll see in the front there is a whole bunch of flower die cuts. Now, I did these for a previous project, and I will make sure I put a link below. It is an MFT set. It can be a little bit expensive. It's got stitched flowers in it. They do have excellent sales. I've seen 45% off and 35% off sales quite regularly through the holidays. So if you're lucky, you might be able to find it. I will put a link below. But for me, I had created a project that used like teal and silver and bright yellow, and I had a little Ziploc bag full of these. And you can see here, I actually had also done a little bit of kind of a chocolatey, bronzy shimmer cardstock as well. And I'm just running through, attaching a little circle to the middle of these and then loading them up onto these cards. The one thing I love about a mini slimline card, well, there's lots of things that I like about them. I am really enjoying the fact that they're quite easy to decorate, and you don't have to think too much about creating some balance on the front of the card. Because it's a smaller area, putting a couple of these flowers together and then the sentiment is enough to add enough interest to the card without hiding too much of the pattern paper behind. It absolutely works beautifully. One tip that I do have for you is if you love creating slimline cards or mini slimline, and these are 3 1/4 by 6 1/4 in size, the perfect envelope for these, if you're based in the US, is the envelopes that are used for cash or for checks. So they're literally called cash envelopes or check envelopes. You can get them at a variety of stores at a really reasonable price if you just search for that. I'm not sure what the actual size is called. For example, we do an A2 card for a US size based, and then there's matching envelope for that. All I know is that if you look for checks or for cash envelopes, you can get them at pretty good prices. In fact, I find personally that envelopes, and especially US-based size envelopes in Australia, are really hard to source and super expensive. So if anyone has any tips for where they buy their envelopes from or ways to get them in bulk at reasonable prices, then maybe put a comment below, and it might be helpful to someone else who is into bulk card making and works on the, bigger size projects. So thank you in advance for that. As you can see here, I'm just finishing these up. I have loads and loads and loads of these flowers, and I decided to stick together the flower and the little center part so that when I use them for a future project, they're already matched up and they'll be much quicker to use. It also meant that there was less little tiny pieces kind of flying around my desk, which I also find super helpful so that they don't get misplaced and lost and then, I guess, eventually wasted. If you'd like to check out more videos using Slimline and Funfold cards, then I've put a link to a playlist here. I've also put the original video using the Bird Days paper pad. Have a great day!